Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our channel. If you think a neighborhood feud can't sink a whole street, flood a dozen houses, and crush a homeowners association in front of the evening news cameras, you've never met me, or Karen Mitchell. By the time the sky turned black and the ground started swallowing lawns, she thought she'd won. She was wrong. This is how the land, the rain, and I made sure of it. The air reeked of swamp mold and powdered concrete as I stood where my backyard used to be, watching Karen from the HOA screech at a city inspector while her oversized, overpriced McMansion sagged another inch into the mud. Patrol cars blared flood warnings, frogs croaked from what used to be manicured lawns, and a rusted mailbox drifted past like a miniature coffin. Yep. This mess is mine. And you're probably wondering how it started. I never planned to fight a war over a lazy trickle of water that wound past my property, but that's exactly what happened. For years, that narrow creek was my reward at the end of a workday spent welding pipes and crawling under strangers' floors. I'd park myself in an old folding chair, beer in one hand, fishing pole in the other. Never caught more than a stubborn bluegill, but that didn't matter. The dragonflies danced, the air smelled like rain and grass, and the water whispered through the rocks. It was peace, untouchable, until the HOA came creeping. They'd always been over on the far side of the subdivision, cloned beige boxes, identical mailboxes, pumpkins lined up like soldiers every October. We were the originals here, the holdouts from before developers paved the fields. But boundary lines shifted, and before we knew it, the HOA had oozed into our lives like an oil slick. Karen Mitchell, Community Standards Chair, showed up on my porch one muggy Saturday, pastel workout gear stretched over a frame that had clearly never seen a treadmill. She clutched her clipboard like a riot shield and smiled with the warmth of a tax audit. She wanted to talk about my creek. More specifically, she called it an unauthorized water feature that endangered children, wildlife, and neighborhood visual harmony. I stared at her like she'd accused my dog of armed robbery. That creek had been here longer than the houses, longer than the HOA itself. I told her so. She didn't care. Karen had rules about fencing, standing water, appearance. I quoted county codes and pointed out the creek's protected status in my deed. She scribbled notes like she was drafting an arrest warrant and left in a cloud of perfume and annoyance. 2 days later, my first violation notice appeared, blue tape holding it to my door. I was charged with hazardous open water and harboring non-native species. Apparently frogs were now foreign invaders. I ignored it. A week later came a second letter, $100 a day in fines unless I submitted a compliance plan. My reply was short, see attached survey and county code. The HOA responded by scheduling a mandatory inspection. That meant 3 strangers in my yard, snapping photos like they were documenting a crime scene, while Karen lurked at the property line, arms folded. They didn't step into the creek, but they wrote plenty down. At the next HOA meeting, one I hadn't planned to attend, Karen announced that my creek was an imminent safety hazard. She demanded I fence it off, fill it in, or allow weekly inspections for a year. I told her, in front of everyone, exactly where she could file her paperwork. Politely. Things escalated fast. Anonymous complaints piled up on my door. My mailbox got knocked down. Someone dumped landscaping rocks in the creek to block the flow. I caught Karen parked across the street, snapping photos from her SUV like a budget private eye. Then came the cement truck. One Wednesday morning, coffee in hand, I heard heavy equipment rumbling closer. By the time I stepped into the yard, a mixer was backing into place, chute aimed straight at my creek. Drainage mitigation project, HOA approved, the man in the vest said without looking at me. The slurry poured out in a gray torrent, coating the stones, choking the reeds, trapping frogs mid-leap. By the time they were done, my creek was a lifeless slab. Karen watched from the sidewalk, smirking like she'd just taken a queen with her pawn. That summer, the rain came back. Normally, the creek would have swallowed it with ease. Now, water hit the concrete, hesitated, then crept backward across yards and sidewalks. Lawns turned to bogs. Driveways dipped under brown puddles. Basements soaked. The HOA blamed homeowners for improper grading. 2 storms later, people started yelling at each other. Floodwater turned neighbors into enemies. Karen formed a flood mitigation task force, which was just more fines and threats. I kept quiet, my old Nikon around my neck, taking photos of every puddle, every mailbox half drowned, every driveway washed out. The land was shifting, slowly at first, Walls leaning, lawns sloping, driveways cracking. Water doesn't forget its path, and it was pushing back. I knew it was only a matter of time. The third week of rain hit like Judgment Day. Streets became rivers. Yards vanished. Houses cracked open. And across the street, Karen stood in ankle-deep water, screaming into her phone while her perfect lawn became a swamp. Then I found it, the envelope my grandfather had left me. Inside, county letters, maps, legal documents proving the creek was a protected drainage easement, untouchable by any HOA. I called the county water authority, then the city environmental office. Then I sent every scrap of proof, plus my drone photos, to the news, the paper, and the HOA gossip forum Karen had banned me from. Within days, inspectors arrived. Within a week, the news ran the story. Soon, the HOA was under official investigation. Karen raged at the board, at the city, at the cameras. It didn't matter. The proof was everywhere. The citations came next. Unsafe structures, unstable foundations. Entire homes, including Karen's, were tagged unfit to live in. Insurance companies denied claims, calling it negligence. Foreclosures followed. Karen's McMansion was condemned. She moved into a borrowed RV sinking into the same mud she'd created. The HOA died in a rain-soaked vote. We restored the creek ourselves, digging, planting, letting the water find its way home. The first time it flowed again, clear and laughing, I sat beside it, legs in the cool current, and smiled. I carved a sign for the bend in the water, nature always wins. Karen left not long after, towing her broken RV. The swamp kept her house. And the creek, it kept running, patient as ever, waiting for the next fool who thought they could tame it.